The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
I've talked for a very, very long time on this program about the absurd internal inherent contradiction in which right-wing anti-choicers who are against abortion in any and all circumstances are also typically against birth control access, certainly many times when covered by insurance. They are in favor of abstinence-only sex education, which not only is at face value not a good idea, but also does not work as demonstrated by so many studies, and are against the morning after pill as well on the grounds that it is an abortion, which of course we have researched and reported to you that it is not. Well, that doesn't make sense because those are all methods and techniques and services and products that would reduce the number of abortions which they claim to want to do. Well, today we have new information from the Guttmacher Institute, which reports that the United States abortion rate has reached its lowest level since 1973, the year in which the Supreme Court decided Roe versus Wade. Credit goes not at all to the group which claims to not want abortions at all. That group has had absolutely no responsibility for reducing the abortion rate in this country, which is incredible. They have opposed just about every policy that contributes to lowering the abortion rate. And as an article on the Daily Beast points out, the best example is contraception. Mike Huckabee recently suggesting that women need contraception because they can't control their libido. Another Republican presidential candidate, Rick Santorum, thinks contraception is, quote, not okay, and that the Supreme Court decision guaranteeing contraception access to married couples should be overturned. House Republicans are constantly pushing measures, often they go nowhere, to overturn and restrict contraception access. And obviously, contraception reduces unintended pregnancies, some percentage of which will lead to an abortion. This is so obvious, and it is just, I would use the term ironic, but the term ironic almost implies that this isn't a huge injustice and absurdity, but it is somewhat ironic that the group most against abortions bears no responsibility for lowering the abortion rate to its lowest level in 41 years.
Yeah, well, it's as simple as just dismissing facts and information, which is what they've been doing for quite some time. I don't know if they actually believe that their strategies work when trying to combat whatever they're combating. Clearly, it doesn't. But
whatever they believe about their strategies, we know what strategies do and don't work, and they should be thanking the so-called pro-abortion liberals for the policies that have reduced the abortion rate to its lowest in 41 years. I'm not really holding my breath for any credit or compliments from the anti-choice right.
No, but what we can expect is just more of the same and more Republicans trying to teach abstinence-only sex education and things like that.
Scotland becomes the 17th country to legalize same-sex marriage. Out of Edinburgh, Scotland, Scotland has decided to pass the Marriage and Civil Partnership Bill by an overwhelming majority. 105 members of the Scottish Parliament, MSPs, voted in favor. 18 objected, and there were no abstentions. 5 last-minute amendments which wanted to put some limits on the marriage equality bill by a Christian MSP, John Mason, were all rejected, which is great news. First same-sex marriages are expected to take place later this year. Initially, they thought it would take longer for the same-sex marriages to actually start, but they have decided to, the Scottish governor, in fact, has decided to expedite implementation of the bill. Not surprisingly, some of the churches in Scotland are very much against this. The Church of Scotland is not going to automatically be banned from solemnizing same-sex marriage, which is a big contrast to what happened with the Church of England in the rest of the UK upon legalization. However, the Anglican, Catholic, and Presbyterian churches of Scotland have already stated they will not be sanctioning their clergy to marry same-sex couples. I don't think anybody's particularly surprised by that. And I have to tell you, Lewis, in spite of Scottish cuisine being at best mediocre, Scotland is way ahead of the game on marriage equality compared to so many other countries.
That's right. And they also make the best whiskey. So I can let the cuisine thing slide. But something tells me, of course, I'm very happy for Scotland. This is great. Something tells me Ireland is not going to be so quick to join the group here.
Well, we have Netherlands, Belgium, Spain, Canada, South Africa, Norway, Sweden, Portugal, Iceland, my home country of Argentina, Denmark, France, Uruguay, New Zealand, England, Wales, but as Lewis says, not Ireland. Also, this list, interestingly enough, includes a lot of the countries that got rid of the death penalty, and it includes many countries that have universal health care. It's amazing how far behind we are, so many countries, for all of the areas where the U.S. is so far ahead of many countries on death penalty, true nationwide marriage equality, and just giving people basic health care without making them give money to a for-profit corporation or have particular jobs with employers that will provide them health care. So many of these countries very far ahead of the United States.
Right. Also, we can add to the list, some of these countries have decriminalized or legalized some or all drugs, and also that these countries are just generally full of people that are much happier than they are here.
No, interesting. When we've done actually quite some, we've done a few stories, and I actually wrote a graduate thesis on happiness in different countries and what factors seem to help that number go up and what hinders it. And Lewis bringing up an interesting subject, which we've talked about before, and I'm sure we will talk about again. We are just 2 days from the opening ceremony at the 2014 Olympic Games, Winter Olympics in Sochi, Russia. And the Washington Post has a blog article showing the absolute disaster that is taking place in terms of hotel accommodations. The media already starting to show up there, as well as some of the athletes have been there. And I don't want to confuse what I'm saying here compared to being assigned to report from a war zone where there may not even be any running water or hotels, and every day you're in fear for getting shot. I'm not suggesting that the situation for media in Sochi is worse than that. What I am saying is that Russia had agreed to have certain facilities in place. Certainly the assumption was that the water would be running, the toilets would be flushing, there would be roofs on top of the hotels, just certain basic things like that. And so much of it isn't happening. There are a lot of pictures and reports from different reporters who were there. Here are a couple tweets. Got back to hotel, elevator broken after half day. Trekked upstairs, door to my floor, that would be the fire door, locked. Utter farce. The reception of our hotel in Sochi has no floor, but it does have a welcoming picture of Vladimir Putin. Also a picture in a bathroom stall saying, please put the toilet paper in this bin. Do not put any toilet paper in the toilet. Another tweet, for those of you asking, when there's no lobby in your hotel, you go to the owner's bedroom to check in. My hotel has no water. If restored, the front desk says, do not use the water on your face because it contains something very dangerous. I don't know what that something is. There are also pictures of hotels that have the water running. It's yellow. And when I say yellow, I don't mean slightly tinged. It looks like apple juice. I don't know if you saw that picture, Lewis. Certainly nowhere close to what Russia had agreed would be in place in time for the Olympics.
This is surprising to me because Russia is a country that is concerned with image, a proud country, and you would think that they would try to outdo everyone when it comes to the Olympics and the accommodations and everything involved, really.
I would think so too, and not equating Russia to North Korea in any way other than this specific thing, but North Korea is very well known for, no matter what disasters are going on in certain parts of the country, you have it set up with this incredible facade for anyone who comes in from outside of the country, especially when word may get back to other countries that you want to impress, where you only go to the hotels that the electricity works 24 hours a day, there's running water, everything looks right. You only stop at the subway stations that have Essentially, they have the, grand ceilings like Grand Central Terminal here in New York City, and it's all very staged and set up to look okay to foreigners. And Russia is even falling short of that here. And it's the saddest part is that between the legalized anti-gay situation, I don't even know what to call it, and also just the lack of basic facilities, yellow water when it runs, it's sad that Russia ends up still, in part, I guess, receiving some of the publicity, positive publicity, for having the Olympics.
Right. I'm sure once the broadcasts start, it's going to be all fireworks and amazingness, and who knows what's really going to be happening behind the scenes. But I think we'll have some idea thanks to the internet.
Philip Seymour Hoffman, the great Academy Award-winning actor, died over the weekend after a drug overdose. He was actually found with a needle in his arm. We didn't talk much about his death. Certainly Philip Seymour Hoffman in some absolutely excellent movies. I would venture to say one of the greatest American actors of his generation, certainly. I don't think that's an exaggeration. I was interested to read today in the Huffington Post and on CNN that after his death was ruled an apparent drug overdose, police started investigating, well, where did the drugs come from? What are the details of this particular overdose? And now police have made multiple arrests in connection with an investigation that stemmed from the death of actor Philip Seymour Hoffman. According to Lieutenant John Grimple of NYPD, officers executed a search warrant at an apartment building on the 300 block of Mott Street in Lower Manhattan, not very far from our studio, in fact, recovered a quantity of narcotics and made 4 arrests. The New York Times reported that police searched 3 apartments, arrested 3 men and 1 woman, and found 350 bags of heroin. The identities of the suspects have not been released. Initially, a tip led police to the apartment building, and the TMZ is reporting that the tip came from a heroin user who says that he had the same drug dealer as Philip Seymour Hoffman. Okay, so why is this interesting to me? This is interesting to me because immediately I ask myself, does the average overdose death in New York City lead to this level of an investigation? And the answer is absolutely not. It will make little difference to the suppliers of these drugs that some neighborhood drug dealer was busted. Essentially, this investigation will have almost no effect on the so-called war on drugs. This is simply, whoever was arrested is merely a cog in the black market, well-oiled machine of the drug trade. And it is yet more evidence of the kind of disproportionate, arbitrary, and capricious nature of the war on drugs, and how disproportionately those who have money and typically are not minorities have, even in death, their overdose, their involvement with the drug trade leads to such different activity than when, I don't know, some black kid in the Bronx is found in an alley as opposed to an expensive Lower Manhattan apartment, dead of an apparent drug overdose. It only highlights to me the incredible inequality that exists with the war on drugs.
Right. And just overall, I mean, I can't believe that's the discussion that people think we should be having. Where the drugs came from is completely moot. It's just...
Well, it's moot. I want to clarify. The specific local dealer where the drugs came from is moot, given that the entire system funds and supports where they really come from, which is typically from other countries and people making a ton of money.
Right. This specific small instance in which some small-time, of course, drug dealer handed this stuff to Philip Seymour Hoffman. But at the same time, he was said to have bought about $1,000 worth of drugs. Your average person on the street is not going to be spending that kind of money. So they probably thought that, well, perhaps because this is at such a high level and there's so much money here in these transactions, maybe this could lead to something big.
I understand what you're saying, but in the grand scheme of things, in New York City, $1,000 heroin buy is not really that much. Yeah, it's probably more than the $50 that many people are buying in Lower Manhattan from this same dealer, but we're not talking about a necessarily huge bust. I mean, $1,000, it's $1,000, and to Philip Seymour Hoffman, it's not that much. But it is very, very interesting. And we're actually, tomorrow, we'll be talking to Professor Ernest Drucker about the war on drugs and incarceration and so many of the issues that go along with this. Let's take a break. DavidPakman.com, the blue banner at the top of the page that takes you to our Indiegogo campaign. I'm sure you know about that by now. After the break, very, very exciting announcement about that campaign.
The David Pakman Show at DavidPakman.com. Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
You can support this program with the Amazon shopping you already plan to do by going to our website, davidpakman.com, and clicking on the Amazon banner, bookmark it, use it whenever you shop. That's all you have to do. And Amazon sends us a kickback from every purchase you make. You can also become a David Pakman Show member, made possible in part by liberalbias.com. When conservatives unskew liberally biased numbers, they can prove some pretty amazing facts. For example, President Obama has actually driven the unemployment rate up to 50%. I know you're not seeing that in the official numbers. Find out more at liberalbias.com. Today's member of the day is Paulette Lowe. Paulette Lowe is, she not only is she a David Pakman Show member, she also has, I know this for a fact, David Pakman Show gear. You can join Paulette by going to davidpakman.com/membership. Very exciting announcement about our Indiegogo campaign. We are trying to raise money to expand this program to 5 days per week. As I've told you about in the past, we initially started at 1 day every other week, eventually upgraded, expanded to once a week, then twice a week, then 4 times a week back in March of 2012. And the goal is to expand to 5 days a week. We need to fund our increased expenses to do that. Those include staff hours. Those include upgrading equipment, bandwidth costs, etc. We have someone who is insisting that I say a rich dude. A rich dude has offered to match dollar for dollar contributions that come in between now and tomorrow, Thursday, February 6th, at midnight Eastern, up to the $7,000 mark on our campaign. So as of right now, this leaves somewhere around $1,400, okay? If you go onto the campaign page by going to davidpakman.com and clicking on the blue Indiegogo banner at the top of the page, and the total contributed is under $7,000, any dollar you contribute will be matched by a rich dude, as he has asked to be described. This is huge. This is a way to literally double the impact you can make. If you can contribute $10, you are really causing a $20 contribution to take place. Your $10 and the $10 that will be matched. So please go to igg.me/at/TDPS5, or if you don't want to type in any of that stuff, go to our website, davidpakman.com, and at the top of the page, there's a blue banner that will take you to the Indiegogo campaign up to $7,000, up to the $7,000 mark. By tomorrow at midnight Eastern, will be matched dollar for dollar. Please take advantage of that. Patriot Mail, we are going today to Patriot Mail about marijuana. But before we do that, let me remind you what Patriot Mail is.
If Ayn Rand and Ronald Reagan had a baby and suckled that child off the teat of liberty, its cries would sound a little something like Patriot Mail. Written by patriots who hate David Pakman. Because America. And because freedom.
Okay, so like I said, I don't know that Patriot Mail has ever tackled the issues of the war on drugs and drug legalization, etc. To say that this episode tackles them in any significant way might be a little bit of an overstatement, but certainly it is at least tangentially about drugs. Let's take a listen.
You libtard parkman! Instead of recruiting starving Japanese people to work at the site, Just get a couple thousand potheads from Colorado to go there. They won't know they're there, and if you believe the medical evidence that pot helps with chemotherapy, they'll be immune to the radioactivity there. You wackos are so far off course on your thoughts that I'm surprised you have any viewers. I hope the next time you need medical help and are in Colorado that your doc shows up high on pot.
Yeah, so certainly some misunderstandings there about everything. I mean, I don't even know how to itemize, but clearly just someone who has a lot of misunderstandings. There's Hatriot Mail for this week. Marijuana edition. Very interesting stuff. Kind of a disturbing story that's in Yahoo News about an elementary school where, this is in Salt Lake City, Utah. It's called Yinta Elementary. And a group of 40 students had their lunches taken away and then thrown into the trash because there were outstanding balances on their school lunch accounts, as reported by the Salt Lake Tribune. Erica Lukes, who is a parent of one of the students, told the newspaper, "It's despicable. These are young children that shouldn't be punished or humiliated for something parents obviously need to clear up." Lukes' daughter is a 5th grader, Sophia Isom, told KSL TV that a district employee took her lunch, took it away from her, and said, "Go get a milk." Sophia recalled, "I came back and asked what's going on. Then she handed me an orange. She said, 'You don't have any money in your account, so you can't get lunch.'" Eventually, after obvious and deserved outrage from the parents, the Salt Lake City District put up an apology and somewhat of an explanation on Facebook, saying that there was a child nutrition manager who went to the school to investigate the large number of students with negative balances in their school lunch accounts. And then they began calling parents and just pulling lunches and pulling them away and throwing them into the trash. This is traumatic. If you're a kid and you get lunch, you don't really understand what the system is. I remember when I was in elementary school, I was lucky enough that I could afford the school lunch, which at the time I think was like $2.50. I didn't really understand there was the discounted lunch program, there was free lunch. My parents would prepay for the lunch, and then I would get lunch tickets, but some kids brought cash. And what happens if you don't have it? If one day my parents just didn't pay it and the lunch was taken from me and thrown into the trash, I'm not understanding that the way an adult understands that. That's incredibly traumatic, and it would have not been my fault in any way. And this is just a completely horrible way to further traumatize children around issues of income and to further divide, rather, to traumatize over a class division, which may not even really be a class division. It may just have been some kind of oversight.
Right. And in what situation in general does it make sense to throw a perfectly good food that's already been handed to someone into the garbage?
It's almost like saying the garbage is more deserving of this food than you are because of something you probably don't even understand regarding your parents and sending in a check. It's absolutely disgusting. The explanation it leaves quite a bit to be desired. And the kind of meta or macro level of this is that we have plenty of resources for everybody to have the food they need, not in this country, but on this planet. But we have both issues of corporate power and allocation and distribution that are preventing everybody from having the food they need. And that's really, this issue is just kind of a small representation of that. There's an anti-cloning bill that would allow turning away miscarrying women from hospitals. This is in Raw Story. And civil rights experts are warning that a bill that has been approved by the Alabama State House would allow hospitals to turn away pregnant women experiencing or close to experiencing a miscarriage. State Rep Becky Nordgren, who's a Republican, proposed the Healthcare Rights of Conscience Act. It would allow any healthcare professional to refuse to participate in abortion, sterilization, human cloning, and embryonic stem cell research. Now, according to the ACLU, this means that hospital staff could refuse to take part in any procedure which could end a woman's pregnancy during a miscarriage, even if her health was at stake. And the legislation would also protect healthcare workers in hospitals from any liability. So therefore, You are someone who, because of your religious beliefs, is against any of the stuff on this list. And you decide not to provide a service that is needed by maybe a woman who is miscarrying, possibly at personal risk herself. And anything that happens as a result of your refusal to participate in that procedure, you would not be liable for. You would be protected from liability. As the ACLU notes, this means that even if the hospitals know that the on-duty doctor won't provide appropriate medical care, Alabama law says in most cases they aren't even required to find someone who will. It basically says to a pregnant woman in distress, good luck, you're on your own. If our religion tells us we just don't have to do anything here. Hopefully this is going to be appealed, overturned, not voted in, vetoed at some point in the process. And it's incredible that this is a legislator, Becky Nordgren, who would describe herself as pro-life and pro-family. However, when you look at what this legislation, what HB 31 would allow, there's nothing pro-life about that, and there's certainly nothing pro-family about it.
No, we have a caller from Alabama who, when she calls, she refers to Alabama as Alabamistan.
Right.
And this is a perfect example of why that is so accurate.
Yeah, this is a Christian version of Sharia law. The same Sharia law that these right-wingers oppose when it actually is related to Islam is the exact same thing they favor when it comes to Christianity and basing it in Christianity. It's disgusting. The entire concept of pro-life and pro-family is a laughable concept at this point, that we should be laughing at it when people say that they are pro-life and pro-family, because it's so absurd that it should be impossible to resist laughter because it is that insane. And then we should also cry because of the number of people who are actually having their lives negatively affected by this type of legislation. So there's Becky Nordgren's HB 31 in Alabama. Very excited. Next, we will speak to Luke Vargas, joining us from the protests in Kiev, Ukraine. Stay with us.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
Luke Vargas is the United Nations correspondent for Talk Radio News Service. In the past, he's joined us in 2012 from the Democratic and Republican National Conventions. More recently, he joined us from the climate talks in Warsaw, Poland, as well as from Jordan. And today, Luke joins us from Kiev, Ukraine, covering the ongoing anti-government demonstrations that we've talked about. Luke, it's great to talk to you once again.
Always a pleasure, David.
So let's start broadly. Where are you now, and what is the situation in Ukraine?
All right now I'm standing in Independence Square. It's also known as Maidan Square. This is in downtown Kiev. Behind me there's a stage where there have been speeches every night. It's sort of a 24/7 hub of activity. Musicians come here, poets come here and read poems, and every evening usually the opposition figures come here and give a speech. To recap the history of why this is an interesting conflict for me, back in November, the president of the Ukraine, Viktor Yanukovych, sort of did a political 180, saying he was not going to sign an economic integration treaty with the European Union. Instead, he took $15 billion in loans from Vladimir Putin. And as you can probably imagine, Vladimir Putin doesn't give out that kind of money without some strings attached. And a lot of people here were frustrated. This was an abandonment of sort of westernization in this country. But then, when those protests were met with force in December, people got really angry and more came out. And now 2 months later, after violence, after more clashes with police, protesters have basically occupied a large part of downtown Kiev. They're still asking for a lot. They're not receiving a lot from the government. And at this point, the very beginning of February, we're in a political stalemate, if you will.
Okay, so that gives us at least some of the background and the reason why people are congregating there. How have people kind of organized here? And we're going to take a look at some of the video that you and Zach Bador filmed there. And this is definitely more than a protest. Some are calling it an occupation. Describe what the occupied area is like.
It is absolutely surreal to come out of downtown Kiev, which looks like most other, major European cities, and then cross through these barricades. They're constructed with basically city benches that have been uprooted from all over at the bottom, then wooden pallets on top, then these 10-gallon rucksacks filled with ice and frozen snow. They're maybe 20 foot high, and they're all over the place. And occupiers here have cordoned off maybe 10 city blocks where they've erected tents. Thousands of people sleep here every night. Thousands of people are fed. Thousands of people are clothed. Many hundreds of militia are armed, and they get armor here to go out and engage with police and guard the area from the special forces, essentially. So this site is amazing. It's a testament to really extreme organization. It's quite amazing. There's also been occupation of buildings around here. One of the buildings is a trade union building, a distinctly Soviet-era facility. It's 7 stories tall. On the ground floor, you've got a place for clothing donations. The second floor, a media center. On the third floor, a mini hospital. And on the 4th through 7th floors, you've got political offices for some of the largest opposition parties. It's a very interesting site. At other buildings, you've got cultural workshops, an open university. You name it, there's probably some equivalent to normal society functioning here, and I'd say quite well, within Euromaidan at this point. It's a testament to really concentrated, focused, and dedicated civic organization.
It seems relatively organized and kind of well put together. Remembering back when we had Occupy Wall Street here in New York City and the level of organization that existed there, there were libraries, some places to get food and sleep. Are there more similarities or more differences here?
The similarities between Occupy and here have actually, sort of occurred to me a few times. There are some major differences, though. One is that the demonstrators here with these barricades and with the armed guards at the barricades have really sealed this significantly large area of the downtown off from the police. So there are not even any security forces, within the camp, but even just outside the barriers. It feels like a different city, like a completely, separately governed area. Some other differences are that it's immaculately clean almost everywhere. We've seen some dirty porta potties, we've seen some trash piled up, but it's amazing what these protesters have done to combat the sort of problems that typically spring up when you have a sustained occupation in an area that is not suited to house this many people. If there are homeless people that have congregated here, we don't see them. If there are people here who are starving and hungry and need the food here, we don't see them. It really seems like everyone's getting by here, and I think, again, that's a testament to the ability of the volunteers here to adequately serve the needs of the people that have decided to come out here and protest.
So these protests haven't been without violence. We've seen the dramatic images and video, tires burning, priests standing between demonstrators and the police. What happened to some of the protesters who were there in late January? What's the reaction been? Have you seen any fighting or violence?
Yeah, there has been violence here. There were 4 men who were killed in clashes with the police, probably about 300 yards from where we're standing now. This is a very peaceful area. It seems like a normal political type protest. If you go a few streets over, you see this area that is like a war zone. Some of the other journalists covering it say it's like Stalingrad. The water cannons were used against the demonstrators. The whole area froze. It's sub-zero temperatures here. The barricades are composed of burnt out police vehicles that have been stacked up on one another. There have been burning tires at night, so the ground is a combination of ice and black oil and soot and rubber residue. It's crazy. We haven't seen too much fighting here. It's been very peaceful, actually, the week we've been here. Though, there's this risk that hangs over everything, that if parliamentary negotiations break down, if the president doesn't offer concessions that the opposition is willing to accept, then violence could spring up. There are, in the building behind me, groups that are basically akin to militias. They walk around here. They seem willing to engage with police if the situation comes up. So no violence right now, but it's happened. It is on the front of people's minds. It leads to a lot of concern here and around the country. But at the moment here, it's quite safe.
So what's the next step? I mean, where does this leave us? Is the president backed into a corner? Has he found a way to hold on to power? This is really kind of the original catalyst or impetus for these protests.
Yeah, well, diversity of the opposition has been both its strength and its weakness. Again, the range of parties that constitute the opposition and that have seats in parliament span an ideological spectrum that is akin to libertarianism on one side and communism on the other side. There's actually a communist party here that's quite powerful and articulate in the eyes of many protesters, but it is a problem. All these parties can pretty much agree they want to see new presidential elections, new parliamentary elections. The violence that they've seen from the security apparatus here means that they think the president is illegitimate, but they don't agree on tactics. Some of them are trying to be more moderate in the demands they put forward in parliament, especially the party of Vitaly Klitschko, the heavyweight boxing champion of the world. He's an MP and considered quite a good leader. But really when it comes down to it, how they would govern if there were to be a new election. These are not parties that are going to form a coalition in a post-President Yanukovych world, and as such, it's complete political uncertainty here right now. None of us know what is going to be offered as a concession by the government. Nobody knows really how the opposition is going to respond. So we wear our bulletproof vests, not now, but when we go up to the front lines, photographers are out there every night expecting potential clashes, and people here, are on edge. They want to see some changes, but at least in the week that we've been here, nothing really major has happened, and I think that makes a lot of people nervous.
Luke Vargas, United Nations correspondent for Talk Radio News Service, joining us from Kiev, Ukraine. Thanks, Luke.
Sure thing, David. It's always great to speak to you.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
The Star Telegram and the freethoughtproject.com are reporting about a police officer who went to the wrong address and ended up killing an innocent man who was inside, and no charges will be filed against him. R.A. Hepner and his partner Benjamin Hanlon started searching 72-year-old Jerry Waller's property while investigating a burglary last May. They had no idea they went to the wrong address. The burglary wasn't at this address at all. Waller was in bed with his wife Kathy at the time when, like any self-sufficient person, he heard scuffling, didn't think that police were showing up, so he assumed some kind of crime was being committed. He grabbed his .35 pistol and went to investigate. According to a search warrant affidavit released by the Star Telegram, the two officers encountered Waller armed near the corner of his home, told them that they were police and to drop his gun. Now, Waller, in the dark and with good reason, being woken up by somebody entering his house, did not believe them, didn't drop his gun, and instead raised it at Hepner, who proceeded to fatally shoot the senior citizen 7 times. According to the autopsy report, Waller suffered wounds to his chest, abdomen, and hands. And the Star Telegram has been following the case closely and has noted that there are some inconsistencies within the story. Waller's relatives accuse police of misrepresenting facts, stating that Waller never stepped out of his garage when he was shot multiple times just feet from his kitchen door. He was shot multiple times in the chest, only a few steps away from the doorway to his kitchen. Also, according to KHOU, the original report said that Waller was ordered by police officers to lay down his weapon, and that the 72-year-old complied by placing the gun on the trunk of his car, and that there was physical evidence on the car to support that. The autopsy report, however, says as the officer attempted to secure the weapon, that Waller grabbed the gun and was then shot about 6 times. That doesn't corroborate either. And now, to add insult to injury, Tarrant County Grand Jury has decided not to indict the police officer at all. The 2 police officers made a mistake. They went onto an innocent person's private property, and because of their negligence in terms of confirming where they were, an innocent person is now dead, and there will be no charges filed.
Yeah, like you said, negligence. I mean, shouldn't there be some type of penalty? I don't know, for something negligent like this. Of course, it wasn't necessarily that negligent act that made him pull the trigger, but it certainly led to this happening. I mean, I don't know. It's tough because if someone does raise a gun at you, what are you going to do? I mean, clearly, if that's the case, he didn't realize they were police, and the police officer might have had no choice but to fire back.
Sure, and then it
getting
links
shot.
back to what caused the situation initially, and I think certainly there is a lawsuit here for wrongful death that could be taking place, and the officer not being charged with anything at all is just truly an incredible situation here. Walmart has finally admitted that food stamps actually subsidize their profits. For a long time, I've been telling you about how McDonald's and Walmart and other low-wage employers actually benefit significantly from government benefits because their employees are able to, as a result of the low income that they are paid, still maintain that job because they have other benefits coming in from the federal government. Walmart now has actually said Walmart caters to lower income consumers which have been hit disproportionately hard. About 20% of the company's shoppers are food stamp users. About 1 in 7 Americans, or 48 million people, took a hit in 2013 when the federal government food stamp program was cut significantly. Walmart is admitting that because there are less food stamp benefits, they are not doing as well. This is a clear admission, the clearest admission we've seen so far from Walmart, that they are subsidized by federal government benefits. The most incredible thing is that you would think these low-wage employers and also places where people with low wages often shop would realize the more federal government benefits people have, the more you are going to make, yet they still mostly support Republican candidates who oppose those very policies.
Right. It is an interesting admission from Walmart, but I doubt we'll hear the admission of what percentage of their employees use food stamps, right?
Yeah, I don't think that we've ever seen that. We know that McDonald's straight up at least used to recommend to their employees that they can subsidize their income with food stamps, but I don't think we've heard those numbers. I would be very interested in seeing those numbers. Let's go to your voicemails. Our voicemail number is 219-2-DAVID-P. Take a listen to this.
Hey, Dave, Lewis. This is Danny from Tampa. Haven't called in a while, but I just had to call and congratulate you with an awesome show. I just finished listening yesterday's show with your interview with the yet another snake oil salesman. I swear to God, I mean, I wish I had the patience that you have. This guy just kept spitting out more book literature, and the way you just handle the interview, you're great. You're awesome, man. Keep up the good work. Thanks for everything you do, and I can't wait for that extra day of programming.
Yeah, well, thank you for that's, of course, in reference to the Carl Gallups interview for people who didn't realize. Pastor Carl Gallups, and let's listen to one more quick voicemail.
David, this is Justin from Tacoma. I have a question and a comment. While everyone agrees that money and corruption in politics is our main problem, my question is regarding compulsory voting.
Okay.
While it's no panacea, if we use the carrot approach, say increasing tax credits for primary, local, and off-year elections, would that be a viable short-term workaround to money as speech and corporate personhood? My comment is in regards to hatred mail and whether grammatically correcting them is kosher. My thought is that there are proper mediums available should they wish to avoid this criticism, such as voicemail and video. Thanks for your time. Enjoy your show.
Yeah, this is a good point. If you want to write in hateful stuff or send us an angry message, but you want to avoid criticism because of spelling and grammar, you have spell check available. You can also just leave a voicemail at 219-2-DAVID-P. So this is yet more evidence, I think, why it is fair game to point out that when ideas are based in lack of knowledge, lack of grammatical or spelling correctness is actually maybe part of that story. And if someone wanted to avoid that, it's just a matter of picking up the phone and leaving us a voicemail. And if they're only written errors, now, of course, if you also can't really put together a sentence vocally, that's going to be a problem as well. But I think that's a fair point, Louis.
It is. Or if you just want to, if you know there are going to be spelling and grammar mistakes, just abbreviate and intentionally misspell everything in the email so that we'll know that it was all just intentional and we can't tell that you have poor grammar.
There's another idea. We will talk to you on today's bonus show, davidpakman.com/membership to sign up. Members are this program's primary source of funding.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.